Hey everybody, it's Dina Rico from the Creativity Cave, and I have a bright, happy card with a fun inside to share with you today. This is actually pretty easy to do, especially with the tutorial I'm going to share with you. I feature the Welcome Easter, and I'm guessing you want to know what's on the inside, so here we go. Okay, so I'm going to slide the belly band off, and then when I open it up, it's a cute little chick. Isn't that awesome? So let me show you how to create this card because it's pretty easy. So we're going to start with half a sheet of Flirty Flamingo cardstock. And then you're going to need a trimmer. And it kind of helps if you have a ruler too, but if you don't, you can use your trimmer as a ruler. So I'm going to score at 2 1/8 inches on both ends of my half sheet of cardstock. Otherwise, it's 2 1/8 and like 6 3/8. But I always think one measurement's easier than two, don't you think? Okay, so we've got that. I also need 2 pieces of 3.5 by 4 inch cardstock, and then you're going to score that at 1/2 inch. Okay, so I've done that ahead of time, but here we go. Here's my 1/2 inch score, and that's on both pieces. All right, now what we need to do is find the center of this piece. So it's 3.5 on this side, which is 1 3/4 would be the middle, and then it's 2 inches, or it's 4 inches here, so it'd be 2 in the center. So if you use your trimmer, and what I'm going to do is put my cardstock on the 2 inch mark. Okay, so that's 2 inches on the 4 inch side. And then I need to go down 1 3/4. And so to do that, I'm going to line up my little cutting blade, and I'm going to push down where my line lines up here, and then on the 2 inches. Okay, so I've got a little mark, and then I'll repeat that on this piece. So let's see, it's 4 inches. So I'll put this on the 2, so I've got it halfway, and then I'll line that up on the 1 3/4 and push down. Now it might not look like 1 3/4 through, I'm looking through my camera and it doesn't totally look like it, but when you see there, we're lined up correctly. Okay, so there are my 2 marks. Now what I need to do is go from this mark to this mark and cut on both sides. You can do it with your trimmer. I find it a little easier to do it with my scissors, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just gonna cut right to that point. And you want it to be pretty accurate, but it doesn't have to be like dead on, okay? So there's that, and then we'll do it again. And again, you don't want to cut into the score line. You want to make sure the score line stays intact. All right, and then, so these create the shutters, like the shutter of a camera. Okay, and then, okay, so we're gonna score on these 2 fold lines like so. And there we go. Okay, they will get adhered like that. So you're going to take this tab and eventually we'll put it right here on our card. Okay, so on this flap. So let's do our gatefold. I always kind of like to make sure everything meets right in the middle. And I can use my bone folder to kind of fix anything that isn't exact. Sometimes when you score, it doesn't always meet up pretty perfectly, but that was pretty good. Okay, so now I've got the inside of my card. Let me just show you that piece. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is stamp on our little shutters. So to do that, I'll bring in my paper, and I'm going to stamp these with these cute little posy flowers. This is part of that Welcome Easter stamp set that we're using for this card. Ooh, I just got my fingers in the ink. So I'm going to just stamp this kind of all over. Each of my 2 shutters. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Then what I want to do is adhere them to the inside of my card. So I'm only going to put adhesive on this little flap, like so. Okay, and you want to use a strong adhesive, so liquid glue works pretty well. You could also use tear and tape if you prefer. You just want to make sure you get good coverage on those 2 flaps. All right, so I'm going to put my first one in, and I'm doing it about halfway. It doesn't really matter. Oh, except I just put the wrong flap in. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we're going to get rid of this and pretend that did not happen. I happen to have an adhesive eraser, so that's a good thing. So we'll get rid of this adhesive. Ooh, that was a dangerous little situation that luckily I didn't fully commit to. Okay, if you don't have an adhesive rubber remover, you can literally just let it dry and then rub it off with your fingers. Okay, let's put a little more adhesive on here, and then we're going to adhere it the correct way this time. Okay, so I just showed you what not to do. Let's do what you should do. Okay, so I want this to be on my flap like that. Okay, so I kind of like to line it up, make sure it stays down, and now we're good to go. All right. And then this flap over here. Now, don't worry if it's been sitting for a minute, because it actually helps. It makes the glue a little tackier. Now, what I want to do is make sure I've got this lined up with my first one so that they are going to meet nicely together like so. Now, you also want to make sure that you're not going over the edge of the score line. Okay, and there we go. So that looks pretty good. Now, if it's not 100% perfect, mine is off just a skosh, that's okay, because we're going to cover this up. So don't worry too much about that. And then I got a little adhesive here. If you use tear and tape, you don't have to worry about your adhesive. But I do like liquid glue. Okay, so there's that. Now, I'm going to set this aside, and we're going to stamp our chick. All right, so I've just got a scrap of Whisper White. And by the way, all the dimensions for all of this I'll put in the description of this video, as well as on my blog post, so you can see all of the dimensions. So I'm going to stamp my chick in some Memento black ink, just right in the center, like that. And then I'm going to color it in with my Pumpkin Pie and Daffodil Delight blends. So I'm going to do some dark pumpkin pie on our little chick's beak and on whatever this thingy is called. It's got a funny name if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe that's the thing under a chicken or a turkey's chin. I don't know. Clearly, I did not grow up with farm animals. But I like my chick. It's cute. In fact, I'm sure the chick's little feather thing is supposed to be yellow, but I'm making it orange because it's my card and I can do it if I want to. All right, now I'm going to take, oops, I want a bold end. I'm going to take and put some dark on my chick, kind of here on the edges. I'm not even going to bother with my chick's feet because we aren't going to see them. So don't worry about that. Okay, and then I'll blend the rest with my light Daffodil Delight. So I'm just going to go over that edge, make sure that the blending looks good. And I think it does. Same thing down here. Okay, this looks great. Okay, so there's our cute little chick. All right, we want to adhere this so that it will show through on our card and you'll see its face. So that is pretty well centered. So I'm gonna just open this back up and then put some glue right here. And I'll reposition this to make sure we're in the right spot. Again, don't worry, it's not gonna show. We just wanna make sure that we can see as much of that chick as possible. And as promised, the feet do not show. There we go. Okay, and again, I'm gonna cover this all up. So to do that, I'm going to take a 3 by 5 1/4 inch piece of printed paper. Now, all of the printed paper I'm using today is coming from my Brights DSP paper stack. And I'll put it on a 3 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece of Coastal Cabana. As you recall, it's the color that lets us know God loves us. Now, I'm going to position this right inside. This is where it's going to go in my card, kind of centered up here. And then what I want to do is actually mark the center with a little X, okay? This is the dead center of this, and then what I can do is punch that out with my punch, okay? So I just want to make sure I'm centered top to bottom, and boom. All right, now, and I go in all the way. I'm going to put some dimensionals on the top and bottom of this strip, and I'll put several, like 3 or 4 is fine. And these will kind of make sure the mechanism can move smoothly. So I'll peel these off. And then we're going to decorate the outside. Okay, so I'm just going to set this on top and then center this on here. And then boom. Okay, check this out. It closes and it opens. Yay! Okay, so that makes me happy. Hopefully it makes you happy too. Now I'm going to show you how to do the belly band. So for the belly band, I'm going to use the Happy Easter and stamp this in my little color combination, which I've got Coastal Cabana Granny Apple Green, Daffodil Delight, and Flirty Flamingo. I'm going to start from the bottom up just because that's the color of ink that's currently on my stamp. And we'll stamp Happy Easter. And I'm just going to clean this off on my chamois in between. Next, I'll do my Granny Apple. Ink that up and stamp it above. Next, my Daffodil Delight. I'm cleaning in between just because I don't want to get my ink pads all messed up. Okay. So easy. And then finally, I've got my Flirty Flamingo, which will stamp at the top. By the way, I found it easier to do going from the bottom up than the top down, because the top down is how I did my sample. Okay, then I wanted the coordinating pop of color, so I've got 3.5 by 3/4 of an inch strips of DSP, and I kind of just put each one on here a little bit at an angle just for fun. And I know that probably bugs some of you to have things at an angle, but I thought it was fun. So, you know, it's up to you what you'd like to do. To adhere those, I'm just going to put some adhesive on the back, and then I'll kind of put one on at a time. And I like having a little bit stick off the top and bottom, you know, so you can see that paper nicely. So you just can kind of stick these on however you would like. And then you just want to make sure that you do have some coming off the bottom, like so. Okay, there we go. And then what I have is an 8.5 by 1.5 inch strip of Daffodil Delight. Now on that, this is going to wrap around my card, okay? And so I'm going to just take it, and you want this to be on the front side of your card, the seam, that is. Now it doesn't quite reach, but that does not matter, because what we're going to do is put a little bit of adhesive on both sides of this, okay, to adhere it to the front. And so I'm just going to hold this down for a second while the glue sets up. I kind of have it centered top to bottom over this belly band, and then I can slide that right off my card. So, oh, and I forgot to do my sentiment, sorry. This is also part of the stamp set. And I just took a little 1/2 inch strip, and I will stamp this in Flirty Flamingo ink. And I think this is such a good sentiment because I'm thinking there's not going to be a lot of family gatherings for Easter this year, so this is a really sweet thing to send to someone, to tell them you're thinking of them and wishing them a wonderful Easter, even though you can't be together. And if you weren't going to be together anyway, because maybe you live too far from one another, it is also a lovely sentiment to send to anybody. Now, of course, all of the supplies for these projects can be found in my online store. And, ooh, I just need to grab my triple banner punch. And, of course, if you need any of these items, I would so appreciate your business. Your purchases help make more of these awesome video tutorials that I do each week possible. So please shop my online store. I would be just so grateful. And we're just going to adhere this with a glue dot on the very end of each side, and then we'll put it right here. So you want to make sure it's not sticking inside this circle, because you don't want it to stick to that part so that it can still move. All right, so there you go, guys. I hope you loved this card tutorial and you enjoyed how sweet this is, and that you'll give it a try yourself sometime. There you go. Thanks for stamping with me, guys. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.